Okay, let's unpack this job interviews. It is perhaps the most universal source of professional anxiety, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Even seasoned pros feel it.
Right. Whether you're fresh out of university or, a seasoned professional looking for your next big move, the moment you step into that high-stakes environment, especially now with the whole hybrid setup, the pressure is just huge.
And it feels more complex too, doesn't it? You're juggling video lag, maybe a technical test, and then these really nuanced behavioral questions all at once.
Exactly.
But what's interesting, I think, is that while the pressure feels higher, the process itself, in many ways, has become more standardized, more structured.
Standardized. How so?
Well, there are established formats, common question types, even specific techniques interviewers look for. And that standardization, kind of ironically, gives you a massive advantage if you know the playbook.
Okay. So our mission today is to get past the generic stuff, the usual be confident advice.
Precisely. We want to deliver really specific, actionable strategies. We've looked at a whole stack of sources, corporate guides, strategic advice, deep dives into tech recruitment, even legal rights.
We're talking real-world insights then, pulling from places like Accenture, strategic guides like Exam and CV Maker, tech insights from Loft and Programmeria,
Yeah.
and even legal perspectives from experts like Adriana Cubas.
It's about moving beyond what to say to how you structure it, how you present yourself from the moment that virtual call connects.
Okay, so the first step, even before you open your mouth, is controlling that environment, especially the digital one.
Exactly. That camera turns on, the interview's already started, you've got to manage that digital stage.
Right. Video interviews aren't just an option anymore. They're pretty much the standard, wouldn't you say?
Definitely the default now, which is great for flexibility, no travel, saves time.
True. But, as our sources like Accenture point out, that flexibility comes with a whole new set of challenges. Things you just didn't worry about face-to-face. You basically have to be your own IT support and director.
That's a good way to put it. And the basic tech checks, they seem obvious, but they're non-negotiable. Laptop fully charged. Sounds basic, but imagine scrambling for a charger mid-interview.
Oh, nightmare scenario.
Right. And test everything beforehand. Microphone, camera quality, run an actual speed test on your internet. Don't just assume it's okay.
And what about using phones or tablets? Sometimes it's unavoidable.
If you absolutely have to, the key thing is do not hold it. Prop it up securely. A tripod, a stack of books, whatever works. That constant little movement from your hand, incredibly distracting for the interviewer, looks unprofessional.
Makes sense. And controlling the digital distractions too, like notifications.
Essential. Shut down everything else. Email, Slack, Teams, especially social media pop-ups. Disable notifications on your computer, your phone, everything. You need complete focus, and the interviewer doesn't need to see your Slack messages flashing up.
Good point. Okay, text sorted. What about the visual setup? Your background?
This is your digital stage. It needs to look professional instantly. Find a quiet spot, first off, and then look for a neutral, organized background. A plain wall, maybe a tidy bookshelf.
Not the kitchen sink or a messy bedroom behind you.
Please no. And Accenture actually warns against using those virtual backgrounds unless they're like official company ones. They often glitch, your head disappears or the edges get fuzzy. It just pulls focus.
Right, better to just tidy up the real background. And minimizing interruptions. Kids, pets, roommates.
Do your best to secure the space. Recruiters usually understand small things happen, life is messy, but making the effort shows you take the interview seriously. It's about respect for the process.
Okay, and lighting. This seems crucial for video.
It's almost everything for video quality. Natural light is usually best, if you can manage it. And make sure it's shining on your face, not coming from behind you. Otherwise, you're just a silhouette.
So you might actually need to move your desk around.
Absolutely. Get that light right. Make sure your face is clearly visible, evenly lit, no weird shadows, no glare off your glasses if you wear them.
Now, the tricky part, nonverbal communication on screen. It feels different than in person.
It really does. And the biggest mistake people make, looking at their own picture on the screen.
Yeah, it's hard not to.
It is. But when you do that, your eyes drift down. To the interviewer, you look disengaged, maybe even distracted.
So you need that. What did you call it? The contact illusion.
Exactly. You have to train yourself to look directly into the camera lens. That's the only way to simulate eye contact. It feels unnatural at first, but it makes a huge difference in connection. Maybe put a little sticky note next to the lens to remind yourself.
Good tip. And camera position.
Eye level. Always. Not looking up your nose, not looking down at the top of your head. Get some books or a stand to raise the laptop if needed.
Posture matters too, I assume. Even sitting down.
Definitely. Sit up straight, shoulders back, project confidence. And you might need to speak a bit louder, especially with built-in mics. Smile, show some energy.
And how much of you should be visible?
The standard advice is shoulders up. That gives you enough space for some natural hand gestures, which can convey enthusiasm, but avoids anything too wild or distracting outside the frame.
And finally, what you wear, even though you're at home.
Dress as if you were going to their office. Full professional attire. It signals respect, seriousness, and honestly, it helps you get into the right mindset too. So, okay, the stage is set, you look professional, the tech is working, but then comes the question, how do you make sure your answers land effectively? Especially those behavioral ones, the tell me about a time when questions.
Right, those can really trip people up. You need more than just a good story.
You need structure. And the sources we looked at are almost unanimous on this. There's one technique that stands out, the STAR method.
STAR. I've heard of this. It's an acronym, right?
It is. It's a framework to turn your experiences into clear, concise, compelling stories that directly answer the question. It stops you from rambling or being too vague.
Okay, break it down for us. STAR stands for?
Situation, task, action, and result. 4 parts. It forces you to focus on one specific example and walk the interviewer through it logically.
So as for situation, setting the scene.
Exactly. Describe the context, the background, but keep it concise, just the necessary details. For instance, don't just say, we had a project issue.
Give us a better example.
Okay, a strong STAR situation might be. In my last role as project manager at Company X, we were launching a critical new software feature. 2 weeks before the go-live date, our lead QA tester unexpectedly resigned, leaving a major gap in our testing plan. Say, specific context, clear problem.
Got it. Sets the stakes. Then T for task, what you had to do.
Right. What was your specific goal or the challenge you were responsible for addressing within that situation? Following the example, my task was to revise the entire testing strategy and redistribute the workload immediately to ensure we could still meet the launch deadline without compromising quality. It defines your specific mission.
Okay, now A for action. This sounds like the core of it, what you did.
This is absolutely crucial, and it's where people often slip up. They say, we did this, or the team decided that. No, the interviewer wants to know about your specific actions and contribution.
So sticking with the QA example.
The action would be, I personally analyzed the remaining test cases, identified the highest priority scenarios, and then I convened an emergency meeting with the 2 junior developers. I reassigned specific testing modules based on their existing familiarity with the code, provided them with targeted mentoring sessions, and I implemented daily check-ins to monitor progress and resolve blockers quickly. Focus on the I statements.
That's much clearer. It shows your initiative. And finally, R for result. The payoff.
Yes. What was the outcome? What impact did your actions have? And ideally, quantify it if you can.
So the result of your swift QA reorganization?
As a result, we successfully completed all critical path testing just hours before the deadline. The launch went ahead as scheduled with only minor non-critical bugs reported post-launch, which was actually better than our initial projection. The junior devs also reported feeling more confident in their testing abilities afterwards. Tangible outcome, positive impact.
That structure really makes the story land. And you mentioned it's great for common questions, like handling conflict.
Perfect for it. Interviewer asks, tell me about a time you resolved a conflict. You immediately think, STAR.
Give us a quick rundown.
Situation. 2 team members strongly disagreed on the technical approach for a key project component, causing delays. Task. My job was to mediate and find a solution that met technical needs and got the project back on track. Action. I held separate one-on-one meetings to understand each person's perspective and concerns, then facilitated a joint meeting focused on objective pros and cons, guiding them towards a compromise solution. Result. The conflict was resolved, they agreed on a modified approach, the project finished successfully, and actually their working relationship improved afterwards.
See, that structure just works. It makes the answers so much more credible and easy to follow. #3, decoding common interview questions and strategic responses. That STAR method definitely provides clarity. Okay, let's tackle some of those classic interview questions that always feel like traps. Strengths, weaknesses, that where do you see yourself in 5 years question.
Right, these require careful thought. Let's start with strengths, or even that opening, tell me about yourself. You can't just list generic things.
Like I'm a hard worker.
Exactly. Useless. You need to pick 2, maybe 3 key strengths or values that are directly relevant to the job description you're interviewing for. Be targeted.
And you need proof, right? not just claims.
Absolutely. If the job needs strong analytical skills, you mentioned that, then immediately give a very brief example from your work or education where you use those skills effectively. Like, I'm highly analytical. For example, in my last project, I analyzed sales data to identify a bottleneck that was costing us X amount, and my proposed solution increased efficiency by Y%. Structure it, intro, evidence, conclusion, linking it back to this role.
And tone matters here too, doesn't it? You need to be confident, but not arrogant.
That's a fine line. The sources really emphasize this, especially regarding organizational fit. Be truthful about what you're good at, but avoid sounding boastful. Recruiters want competence and someone who can collaborate well. Coming across as overly proud can be a red flag, even if your skills are top-notch. Humility counts.
Yeah, now for the big one. The weakness question. Everyone dreads this.
They do. But it's not really about finding a fatal flaw. It's a test of self-awareness. Can you honestly assess yourself, and more importantly, are you doing anything about it?
So honesty is key.
Honesty, yes, but coupled with strategy. You should show you're capable of self-reflection. Maybe even mention seeking feedback from past managers or colleagues to identify genuine areas for improvement.
But you can't just say, I'm bad at deadlines, can you? You need that. Positive reframing.
Exactly. You need to choose a real weakness, but one you're actively working on, or one that could even be seen as a strength in overdrive. The old classics like I'm a perfectionist are cliches now, though. You need to be more specific.
So how do you handle perfectionism without sounding fake?
Instead of just saying I'm a perfectionist, frame the impact, for example. I've sometimes found myself spending perhaps too much time on the final polishing stages of a task, which occasionally put pressure on deadlines for subsequent tasks. That acknowledges the downside.
Okay, and then the crucial part, the action you're taking.
Right. Follow up immediately with, however, I recognize this wasn't always efficient, so now I use time-blocking techniques and set myself internal, good enough deadlines a bit earlier, which helps me balance quality with timeliness. It shows awareness and a solution.
That sounds much better. What about difficulty delegating? Another common one.
Reframe it, maybe. Because I'm very committed to ensuring high quality, I've sometimes had a tendency to take on too much myself rather than delegating, then the action. But I'm actively working on this by investing more time in upfront training and clear documentation for my team, and I make a conscious effort to delegate at least one significant task each week, treating it as a development opportunity for them.
And if the weakness is a technical skill gap, especially relevant in fast-moving fields.
Be specific, never vague. Don't say, I need to improve my tech skills. Say, while I haven't used Python extensively in my last role, I identified it as a key skill for this type of position. So I started an online certification course 6 weeks ago. I'm dedicating evenings to practice projects, and I expect to complete the certification by the end of this quarter. Always mention the concrete steps you're already taking. Action beats intention every time.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift to the future. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are they really asking here?
They're probing your ambition, your commitment, and whether your goals align with what the company can realistically offer. They want to see if you're thinking about building a career, potentially with them.
So vague answers like traveling the world are out.
Definitely out, unless the job is for a travel blogger. Your answer needs to reflect professional growth that connects to the company's likely trajectory. It should sound like you've actually thought about your career path.
And again, concrete steps help.
Yes. Mentioning things you're already doing makes the goal seem more real. My 5-year goal is to move into a team lead position. To prepare for that, I'm currently completing an online management skills course and actively seeking opportunities to mentor junior colleagues in my current role. It shows proactive preparation for mutual growth.
Got it. And the last tricky one, salary expectations. Always awkward.
It can be, but preparation removes most of the awkwardness. You absolutely must do your research beforehand. Know the market rate for similar roles in that specific industry and location. Use online salary tools, talk to recruiters.
And when they ask, state a range, not a single number.
A range is usually safer, yes. It shows flexibility, but also sets your value anchor. Based on your research, you might say something like, based on my experience and the responsibilities outlined for this role, I'm looking for a salary in the range of $16,000 to $20,000. Be confident and be ready to briefly justify it based on market value and your skills.
And it's not just about the base salary, is it?
No, absolutely not. You should always consider the total compensation package. Be ready and willing to discuss benefits, bonuses, potential equity, vacation time, training budgets, etc. Looking at the whole picture shows you understand how compensation works in a corporate setting. #IVV. Deep dive into specialized interview formats. So, connecting this back to the bigger picture, interviews aren't one size fits all anymore, especially for specialized roles. Our sources gave us some really interesting deep dives into specific assessment models. We should look at technical interviews first, particularly in engineering.
Right, the stuff detailed by places like Loft and Programmeria.
Mhm.
This isn't just about churning out code, is it? It's about explaining your thinking.
Exactly. They're assessing three main things. Can you translate business needs into working code? Can you design software that's actually maintainable and scalable? And can you choose the right system architecture? And crucially, across all stages, coding, design, architecture, communication is key. You have to articulate why you're making certain decisions. Often it's done through pair programming, where they watch your process.
Okay, let's break down those stages. First up, coding skills, usually algorithms.
Often, yeah. It's about fundamentals. Do you have a solid grasp of data structures, arrays, maps, lists? Can you write clean, logical code using loops, conditions? And critically, is your code readable? Good naming for variables, functions, classes. Think about the next person who has to read your code.
Makes sense. Stage 2, code design. This sounds more high level, about organization.
It is. This tests your architectural thinking. Can you build software that's robust, easy to test, and won't be a nightmare to maintain later? They often ask you to draw your design.
Draw it, like on a whiteboard or digitally.
Yeah, using something like UML or similar diagrams to show the different components, what they're responsible for, and how they interact. It visualizes your design choices.
Okay, UML is Unified Modeling Language. Basically, a standard way to draw software blueprints.
Pretty much. It's a visual language to map out the system's structure and relationships. When they ask for a UML-like diagram, they want to see how you break down the problem, how you separate concerns logically.
And this is where things like design patterns and solid principles come in. Solid sounds important.
Very important, especially for experienced roles. SOLID is an acronym for 5 key design principles that help you write code that's flexible, maintainable, and understandable. It's about building software that can evolve without breaking.
Can you give us a quick version of what SOLID stands for?
Sure. S is single responsibility. Each class does one thing. O is open-closed, open for extension, closed for modification. L is list-off substitution subclasses, should be substitutable for their base classes. I is interface segregation, don't force clients to depend on interfaces they don't use. And D is dependency inversion, depend on abstractions, not concrete details. Knowing these shows, you think about long-term quality.
Wow, okay, that's quite technical. And automated testing fits in here too.
Big time. If your code design makes it hard to write automated tests, that's usually a sign of poor organization or tight coupling. They want to see that you build testability in from the start.
Right, then the final stage, architecture, especially for senior roles.
Yes, this is about the big picture. How do all the pieces fit together? Applications, databases, third-party services, APIs. It requires more than just coding. It requires system thinking.
And this is where debates like monolith versus microservices come up. What's the core difference there?
It's a fundamental architectural choice. A monolith is basically one big, single application containing all the code. Simpler to start, but gets clunky and hard to update as it grows.
Okay.
Microservices break the application into lots of small, independent services that talk to each other, usually over a network. Each can be developed, deployed, and scaled independently.
So microservices offer more flexibility.
Much more flexibility, yes. Different teams, different tech stacks. But they add complexity in managing all those moving parts and how they communicate. The interviewer wants to see if you understand these trade-offs and can choose appropriately based on the project's need scale, team size, complexity.
And that communication between microservices, synchronous versus asynchronous?
Another key architectural decision. Synchronous is like a phone call. Service A calls Service B and waits for an immediate reply. Simple, but can create bottlenecks if B is slow.
And asynchronous.
More like sending an email or text message. Service A sends a request to B and moves on. B processes it later and maybe sends a notification back. It makes the system more resilient and decoupled, better for high-load systems, but it's more complex to design and manage. Understanding these patterns is crucial for system design roles.
That technical interview sounds intense. It's really about problem solving and explaining your rationale, not just coding syntax.
Exactly. Now let's switch gears completely to another highly structured format. Clinical or medical interviews, like the OSCE model used for medical licensing.
OSCE, Objective Structured Clinical Examination, using mini clinical cases or MCCs.
Right. The format is often something like, Discuss 3 simulated patient consultations in about 60 minutes. They'll give you a mix, maybe an acute case, a chronic condition, a complex scenario.
And what are they primarily assessing? It's not just medical knowledge, is it?
No, knowledge is assumed. The focus is heavily on how you interact and make decisions. Can you take a person-centered approach? Treat the patient, not just the symptoms. Can you gather information efficiently, make evidence-based decisions? And crucially, can you communicate effectively and empathetically with the simulated patient who's often a trained examiner?
And they score this on a scale like 1 to 5. What does a top score, level 5, look like?
Level 5 goes way beyond just getting the diagnosis right. It means showing high competence, of course, but also real fluency in the consultation, technically excellent examination skills, and importantly, demonstrating genuine sensitivity and involvement with the patient's situation. It's about showcasing holistic clinical skill and professional attitude under pressure. #TAG-V. Navigating legal and ethical boundaries. Prohibited question.
Okay, this next part is really important. We've talked strategy, but now let's talk rights and boundaries. Sometimes interviewers cross lines, asking things that are inappropriate or even illegal.
Absolutely critical to discuss. Candidates need to know what's off limits. The sources, referencing laws like Brazil's law 9.02995 as an example, are very clear. Questions must stick strictly to professional experience, skills, and competencies relevant to the job. Personal life intrusions are generally unacceptable.
Let's pinpoint some of those unacceptable zones. Family and reproductive status seems like a major one, historically used for discrimination.
Definitely. Asking if someone is pregnant, plans to have children, about their marital status, are you married, are you dating, these are prohibited in many places. The intent is often discriminatory, trying to guess future availability or commitment, and laws aim to stop that. Questions about race, ethnicity, sexual orientation are also completely out of bounds, as are requests for certain invasive tests.
What about health and lifestyle?
Generally off limits, too. Asking about chronic illnesses, medications, general health history is usually irrelevant to your ability to do the job and violates privacy. The very narrow exception might be if the job has extremely specific, undeniable physical requirements like being a firefighter. But even then, it has to be handled very carefully, focusing on ability to perform essential functions and potential accommodations, not just probing health status.
And personal habits, smoking, drinking, social life.
Irrelevant. What you do outside of work hours is your business, as long as it doesn't impact your job performance. Asking, do you party hard, or about smoking habits, is unprofessional and inappropriate. Same goes for political affiliation. Your voting preferences are private and shouldn't factor into hiring decisions.
What about questions about why you left your last job? That's a standard question, but how should candidates handle it carefully?
It's a fair question, but the absolute rule is never, ever speak negatively about a previous employer, manager, or colleagues. It just makes you look unprofessional and potentially difficult.
So how do you frame it?
Strategically and positively. Mention reasons like company restructuring, department closure, seeking new challenges, wanting opportunities for growth that weren't available, or pursuing a role more aligned with your long-term career goals. If you have several short stints, be ready with a narrative that frames it as diverse experience gathering or rapid skill acquisition, not instability.
Okay, so if an interviewer does ask one of these inappropriate personal questions, what's the best way to respond?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer it, right?
You absolutely do not have to answer intrusive personal questions. The best strategy is to remain calm and professional and gently redirect the conversation back to job relevance.
How would that sound in practice?
You could politely ask for clarification on how the question relates to the role. Something like, I'd be happy to discuss any aspects of my background relevant to performing this job effectively. Could you help me understand how my family plans relate to the key responsibilities of this position? It puts the onus back on them to justify the question's relevance, subtly highlighting the boundary without being confrontational.
Okay, we've navigated the interview itself, the prep, the star answers, the tricky questions, even the illegal ones. Now, the final stretch. How do you wrap it up effectively and manage the follow-up? It starts with the questions you ask, right?
Yes, the questions you ask at the end are really important. This is your chance to show your thinking strategically, like a potential colleague, not just a candidate desperate for any job. Skip the basic questions about vacation time you could find online.
What are some good examples of strategic questions?
The sources suggest things like, thinking about the first 90 days in this role, what would success look like? What key actions could I take to make a positive impact quickly? Or maybe, What's the biggest challenge the team is facing in the next 6 months that this role will directly help address?
Those definitely show you're focused on contributing. I also like the one aimed at uncovering any hidden doubts the interviewer might have.
Ah, yes, the proactive hesitation question. It takes courage, but it can be very effective. Asking something like, now that we've talked and you've reviewed my background, is there anything that gives you pause or makes you hesitate about my candidacy for this role?
Why is that so powerful?
Because it invites them to voice concerns now, while you still have a chance to address them directly. Maybe they misunderstood something or have a slight reservation. This question opens the door for you to clarify or provide more context, rather than letting that unspoken doubt potentially sink your application later.
Smart. Okay, interview's over. What about follow-up etiquette?
A thank you note is non-negotiable. Send a concise, professional email within 24 hours. Thank the interviewer for their time, briefly reiterate your interest, and maybe mention one specific thing from the conversation that resonated with you or highlighted your fit.
And if you don't hear back by the deadline they gave?
It's okay to send a polite follow-up email after the deadline has passed, just a brief check-in asking about the status of the process. It shows continued interest without being annoying or demanding.
Finally, let's talk about feedback. The sources highlighted a big gap here. Candidates want it, but rarely get it, especially negative feedback.
It's a huge issue. Apparently, something like 94% of candidates want feedback, but very few actually receive meaningful input. And that really damages the company's reputation, their employer brand. Companies really should do better.
What does good feedback look like, even if it's a rejection?
It should be timely, ideally within a week or so. It should be specific, respectful, and constructive. If possible, briefly explain why another candidate was a better fit, or suggest areas for the candidate to develop. Maybe even point them towards relevant resources like courses or articles. It shows respect for the time they invested.
And for the candidate, even if you don't get feedback from them, you should do your own review.
Absolutely. Every single interview is a learning opportunity. Take some time afterwards to reflect honestly. What went well? What questions did I struggle with? What could I have explained better? Use every experience, positive or negative, to refine your approach for the next time. Continuous improvement is key. #AdOutCheckOutro.
So we really dove deep today. We covered everything from setting up your virtual interview space, mastering the tech,
To really nailing those behavioral questions using the STAR method. That structure is just so powerful.
and tackling the tricky questions, strengths, weaknesses, the 5-year plan with strategy and concrete examples.
We also explored those specialized interviews, getting into the weeds of technical assessments like code design, solid microservices.
And the person-centered focus needed for things like clinical OSCEs, plus knowing your rights when faced with inappropriate questions.
Right. So what's the main takeaway here? I think it's that success in interviews today, especially for these more complex roles, isn't just about luck or being smart.
No, it's really about preparation, structure, and clear communication. Being able to explain your reasoning, whether it's code architecture or how you handle a past conflict that seems paramount.
It's about demonstrating competence methodically, professionally, under pressure, leaving them with the impression that you're not just qualified, but also thoughtful and structured in your approach.
Exactly. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with. Given how complex recruitment has become, AI screening, multi-stage technical tests, all of it, job searching itself is now a distinct skill set. So beyond just practicing your answers, what specific structured area of interview preparation will you commit to mastering this week? Will it be drilling that eye contact with the camera lens, meticulously crafting your weakness answer with a concrete action plan, or maybe digging deeper into understanding those architectural trade-offs like synchronous versus asynchronous communication?
Pick one specific skill.
Right. Focus on mastering that one element to make sure that, win or lose, you come out of your next interview having learned something tangible and improved your own process.